The wait is over. In just 3 years' time, the question of the existence of extraterrestrial life will be answered once and for all. Because 2027 is the year in which our extraterrestrial neighbors make themselves known. Well, that's what former CIA agent John Ramirez is convinced of. But is it possible that his bold claims have a kernel of truth at the end of the day? Will we all be sitting there looking stupid in 3 years' time? After all, one thing is undisputed. Ramirez is by no means the only ex-Secret Service employee to hit the headlines with such statements. You've probably also heard of Bob Lazar and David Grusch, who claim that the US government has long known about the existence of aliens and has been fooling the public for decades. Edward Snowden also recently commented on the controversial UFO topic and provided an answer that provides a deep insight into the hidden machinations. At first glance, the following sounds like the hook for the next Netflix series. A former CIA employee decides to turn his back on the notorious Foreign Intelligence Service and confront the world with an unbelievable truth. And as befits an exciting story, all the details about alien contacts and secret government programs are not only met with approval by the general public. However, the ultimate plot twist follows in the year 2027, when most people smile wearily at best. The aliens actually appear on the earthly scene, and the former CIA agent was right all along. The near future will have to show to what extent this script matches reality, and yet John Ramirez insists that he is telling nothing but the truth. According to his own statements, however, he does not just want to dust off his 15 minutes in the limelight with his revelations, but to prepare the US, and in the broadest sense the global population, for an inevitable event. The bottom line for the whistleblower is that if we and the government carry on as before, the arrival of the aliens will trigger a mass panic of unimaginable proportions. But what on earth makes Ramirez think that humanity's oldest question will be answered in 2027? That from now on, we will know with absolute certainty that we are not alone in the universe. Well, unfortunately, the former CIA insider doesn't want to give that away completely. In this regard, he only said in an interview, "I think that word has gotten out in the government that the aliens will show up in 2027. I have heard this in some sort of official capacity, but I can't reveal it. The government is aware that there are only a few years left to prepare people." What is meant by some kind of official capacity is simply left open at this point. But despite all the lack of sources and evidence, there are actually people who believe Ramirez. No wonder, because aliens are neither the first nor the only exotic beings to play a role in the whistleblower's life. In principle, Ramirez is also convinced that reptiloids are among us. What's more, according to his own statements, he has even come face to face with one of these lizard creatures. Those who are convinced of this conspiracy myth believe that the scaly hybrid creatures have crept into our midst. There, the reptiloids dedicate themselves to the task of controlling politics and the economy from the shadows and enslaving our species. What at first sounds like a crazy fever dream is actually accompanied by a bizarre statistic. 4% of Americans believe that the bizarre creatures actually exist. That's 13 million people. However, the following Ramirez quote proves that it is not always good to eat cherries with the lizard creatures. "I once had a negative experience with the creature that most people would describe as reptilian. It came out of the living room into my bedroom. I fought with it, punched it, and had claw marks the next morning." What Edward Snowden knows about UFOs. Our collective short-term memory is something like a sieve. Or do you still have the mysterious objects that appeared over the United States at the beginning of 2023 on your screen? What caused an unprecedented media frenzy at that time and fueled the most adventurous speculation has long since been forgotten, even though we still don't know exactly who or what was shot out of the sky. Exiled whistleblower Edward Snowden, who brought to light the extensive spying practices of secret services such as the NSA and CIA, also expressed his personal thoughts on the mysterious events at the time. In this regard, the former agent wrote the following on Twitter: "I wish they were aliens, but they're not aliens." However, anyone who believes that Snowden's tweet was a reassuring all clear may have been mistaken. Once again, we were dealing with a prime example of the perfidious machinations of the government, which served the sole purpose of collective distraction. The background? When a harmless topic is blown up into a contrived panic, people lose sight of the essentials. For example, the bomb attacks on the Nord Stream pipelines, which were on everybody's lips at the time. So the question that arises at this point is, what is more worrying? If aliens actually appear on Earth, or the knowledge that public attention can be controlled at will by a small elite? But long before these incidents, Snowden wanted to know if there was any truth to the rumors about secret UFO recovery programs and reverse engineering projects. According to the computer scientist's statements, he delved deeper into the CIA networks as part of his research to get to the bottom of the forbidden knowledge. However, the extensive search for clues yielded a result that is likely to be extremely sobering for most UFO enthusiasts. Snowden stated, "Let me get this straight. From my perspective, aliens have not visited Earth to date, or at least they have not contacted the US intelligence community." In an interview with Joe Rogan, Snowden reiterates his statements. "I had almost ridiculously extensive access to the secret networks of the NSA, the CIA, and the military, and I found no evidence of extraterrestrials, nothing like that." But do these statements mean, conversely, that we can put all the wild speculation and theories to bed for good? Well, not necessarily. In fact, the whistleblower's further words make us sit up and take notice. Quote, "If they're hiding something from us, it's really bloody well hidden, even from those who are part of the system. But there's no question that these groups are capable of doing it. They could hide it from us." So could it be that Edward Snowden was simply not part of the tiny circle that had access to the relevant information? Well, maybe. But fortunately, there is one man who did not remain unaware of this knowledge and who triggered a media earthquake last July. Is David Grusch telling the truth? David Grusch initially served as an officer in the U.S. Air Force in Afghanistan. Between 2019 and 2021, he again appeared as a representative of the Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, where he was dedicated to investigating UFO phenomena. And if you follow the claims of the former Secret Service employee, there are incredible things going on behind closed doors. In detail, a top-secret program has been running for several decades in which crashed UFOs are recovered and subsequently reconstructed. A claim that also coincides with the statements of a certain Bob Lazar, who even claims to have boarded an extraterrestrial spaceship himself in the late 1980s. Grusch states that he was denied direct access to the reverse engineering program, but he claims to have learned from a reliable source that the United States government maintains such a recovery program. In addition to several photographs and official documents, Grusch also refers to the confidential statements of U.S. officials, which he did not mention by name. According to this, we are dealing with, quote, "intact and partially intact objects of non-human origin." What's more, biological material was also found during the UFO recoveries, which also turned out to be non-human after a detailed analysis. However, Grusch is also aware of the scope of his extensive accusations. When asked whether anyone had already been killed in the alleged cover-up, he said that he had to be extremely careful when answering this question, adding, "I have referred people with this knowledge to the relevant authorities." What is particularly exciting is that Grusch is by no means alone in his statements. Ex-Navy pilot David Fravor is also convinced that the aliens have long since arrived on Earth. During a mission in 2004, Fravor spotted a tic-tac-shaped flying object that displayed an inexplicable pattern of movement. The statements of former military pilot Ryan Graves are along similar lines. According to him, UFOs are hardly ever reported in U.S. airspace. This is despite the fact that such observations are anything but rare. In reality, they are part of everyday life for military crews and commercial pilots. However, it is in the nature of things that the other side being criticized does not throw up its hands in shame and say, "All right, you've caught us out." Quite the opposite. Sean Kirkpatrick, the head of the Pentagon office responsible for investigating UFO incidents, describes the statements about a top-secret recovery program as insulting. In his statement, Kirkpatrick stated that he was deeply disappointed. He continued, "To be clear, there is no credible evidence to support the claims of a reverse engineering program for non-human technologies." And the Pentagon also clearly distances itself from Grusch's allegations. There is no confirmed information that such a program exists or has ever existed.
Most people associate Russia with icy winters, vodka, and the first man in space. The country is characterized by distant regions and vast landscapes like the tundra. Few people think of Russia when they think of unbelievable and scary events. However, there are more myths, legends, and extraordinary incidents in the country than many think. These stories show that shocking discoveries have been made in very lonely and remote places. A mummified creature. In 2016, an eerie event occurred in Siberia. Miners discovered a strange creature in an old mine. Quite unexpectedly, this mysterious find happened. Excavation work was taking place in the small town of Udachny. While searching for diamonds, the small creature was discovered. It was already mummified and seemed to have died a very long time ago. The workers in the area had never seen such an animal before. Everyone demanded quick answers and an investigation. Some people thought a new dinosaur species might have been discovered because the rocks in the mine date back to the Mesozoic era. Others thought the case was less spectacular. The assumption is that it's more likely the mummy of a small predator, such as a wolverine. What kind of animal the peculiar shape is has not yet been clarified. The creature from the diamond mine remains an extremely creepy sight to this day. Ancient buildings in the Caucasus. In the Caucasus, there are countless buildings of unknown origin. There are hundreds of buildings that have become known as dolmens. Researchers date them up to be 25,000 years old. Their prehistoric architecture is astonishing. At first glance, almost all the objects look quite simple, but they were built in a very precise and structured way. The rocks were formed and bent at an angle of 90 degrees. During the creation, it was carefully made to look so that all corners fit and a circle of buildings could be formed. Nobody knows why these buildings were erected and for what purpose they served. To this day, they have been little explored, and some have already been destroyed or are in danger of crumbling in the near future. The fascinating dolmens in the Caucasus are the perfect example of the fact that Stone Age people had greater knowledge about craftsmanship than previously assumed. Craters in the tundra. The tundra stretches across endless expanses and barren landscapes. Except for lakes, grasses, and mosses, this environment is a very lonely place. Only a few species live in the harsh conditions of this region. It was all the more astonishing that the Russian tundra, of all places, became the scene of shocking phenomena. Deep craters were sighted on the Yamal Peninsula. First there were 3, then even 7 could be counted. All of them are very similar. Imposing and impressive, the holes are spread over long distances. They have a depth of up to 70 meters and a width of about 60 meters. Almost every crater is filled with water and resembles a round hole. Scientists are themselves faced with a mystery, which could have many origins. They assume that the craters could have possibly sprung from a gas and a resulting eruption. A definite solution has not yet been provided. UFO debris from Volgograd. Volgograd is a huge city and is considered one of the most important industrial areas in Russia. The place gained a lot of notoriety during the Second World War. Many people don't know that strange stone slabs caused a stir in the region in 2015. Self-proclaimed UFO hunters made a discovery during a research that immediately caused a stir. More than a dozen small stone slabs and one much larger one were recovered. The participants of the expedition were all immediately of the opinion that the large stone slab must be an extraterrestrial drone or the remains of a flying object. There was great excitement to see if real evidence of an alien civilization could finally be discovered. Some among the finders were of the opinion that the found objects had been lingering on Earth for millions of years. In addition, a rare material was suspected, which is used in space research. The discs are to be examined soon for more detailed answers. The mysterious city of Arkhim. In the Urals, there is a site that magically attracts people from all over the world. It's called Arkhim and is located on the border with Kazakhstan. This site, which was discovered in 1987, is said to be ancient and a reminder of the Bronze Age. Evidence could date the origin of the city to around 2000 BC. Above all, the unique structure keeps archaeologists busy and reveals new insights into ancient building. 30 houses are arranged in 2 rings around a circle. The perfect construction reveals considerable knowledge of mathematics and astronomy. Which cultural group of that time created this site and what life was like for the inhabitants is still largely unclear, but there is something about the place that no one can explain. Pilgrims, shamans, and tourists are attracted to the mysterious city and sense a cosmic energy. A 250 million-year-old microchip. In the south of Russia lies the city of Labinsk. Until now, the place was only known to locals. This changed with an exciting discovery. Fishermen found a stone by a river in the summer of 2014. This had a strange object enclosed in it. It was very striking and reminded them of a small plate. The men hoped for an answer and sent the stone to an institute where researchers were to solve the mystery. A forensic team was able to determine that the rock was up to 250 million years old. But what made this story so incredible was the actual find. The small plate was identified as a kind of microchip. However, it could not be removed because it was feared that the chip would be destroyed in the process. The origin is uncertain. Ufologists feel that this find confirms that it's a foreign body developed by an extraterrestrial technology that found its way to Earth millions of years ago. The stone UFO of Siberia. Almost always, the best stories about UFOs come from the USA. But in Russia, incredible discoveries have also been made that are more exciting than any Hollywood film. Far away in Siberia, miners found a strange object. At the time, they were digging at a depth of 41 meters. In fact, 2 of these objects were found. Only one remained undamaged. It was a little over a meter wide and weighed a proud 220 kilograms. The appearance strongly resembled a UFO, and the material consisted entirely of rock. Renowned archaeologists were commissioned to examine the find more closely. Neither clues nor inscriptions could be found. Numerous theories are circulating around the flying saucer made of stone. Could a distant civilization possibly have buried the objects deep underground thousands of years ago? These and many unanswered questions were in the air. An answer could never be found. The dead at the Dyatlov Pass. In 1959, a horrific accident occurred in the former Soviet Union that still raises many questions today. North in the Ural Mountains, a group of 9 tourists set out on an unforgettable expedition. Their guide was the experienced student and hiker Igor Dyatlov, after whom the pass was later named. The young people were all aged between 21 and 38. The last known sign of life was from January 28, 1959. What exactly happened after that is a mystery. It was a terrifying moment when a rescue team later reached the camp. The tent had been destroyed and the bodies of the young people were discovered some distance away. They were almost naked or dressed only in their underwear. It seemed as if they had suddenly fled out of fear. In the icy cold, they quickly met their death. High levels of radiation could be found in the remains of their clothing, and some of the dead had graying hair. Another hiking group saw red fireballs in the distance over the mountain on the night the drama happened. An official cause of death could not be found, even decades later. The creature next to the nuclear power plant. A ghostly discovery was made near the Leningrad nuclear power plant in 2015. A woman discovered a small body on a riverbank while walking. She christened the dead creature Kisha. The news immediately went viral in the Russian media. Kisha looked like something out of a horror movie. It was tiny and possessed a skull too large for its small size. At first glance, there was nothing animalistic about it, but nothing human either. There was speculation that the small creature could be an alien fetus. Russian biologists consider the case less sensational. It's possible that Kisha suffered a mutation caused by the proximity to the nuclear power plant. Most likely, a bird or rodent is behind the carcass. A closer investigation never took place. Nevertheless, it was an exciting story in the region that caused a lot of excitement. Skull found in the mountains. Adygea is a small republic in the middle of the Caucasus. The region is difficult to access as it is surrounded by mountains and valleys. In this lonely wasteland, historians discovered an intangible story. Very remote and hidden, a kind of bunker was found. This had been abandoned for decades. A shocking fact came to light. Nazis must have once lived and experimented in this structure during the Second World War. An ancient briefcase still lay among the remains of the broken furniture. It came from the SS and belonged to an expedition dealing with ancestral heritage. The Nazis were also searching for extraterrestrial life and traveled to Asia to do so. The biggest shock was the discovery of 2 skulls that did not look human. They had large eye sockets but no mouths. Immediately, it was rumored whether the Nazis had succeeded in finding extraterrestrial beings. Scientists in Moscow doubt this assumption. The skulls might simply have deformed over the years, leaving no mouths visible. To this day, many legends surround the Nazi experiments in the Caucasus. Many of us think that the discoveries that could change human history are all behind us already, but far from it. The subsequent discoveries have the potential to have a lasting impact on our knowledge and reorient our view of human history. Are you fascinated by mysterious things and archaeological discoveries? Then give us a thumbs up, subscribe to Hidden Worlds, and join us on our journey. The strange sarcophagi of the Chachapoya. Never would explorers have guessed what they would find inside a 6-foot statue when it plunged down the Peruvian cliff in the Utcubamba Valley in 1928. The sculpture was a sarcophagus containing a carefully wrapped mummy. Its discovery was only the beginning of the fascinating story of the Cloud Warriors. As more of the sarcophagi were found, they became known as the Purun Machu, the Warriors of the Clouds. Although looters had reached many of the sarcophagi before archaeologists, several Purun Machu were discovered intact, hidden high up on the rocky outcrops. The Chachapoya people, commonly known as the Cloud Warriors, lived in the cloud forests of the Amazon region of what is now Peru as early as 200 AD. The Inca culture conquered the region shortly before the arrival of the Spanish. It took only about a decade for the Chachapoya people to lose most of their cultural traditions after the Inca conquest. Then, the arrival of the Spanish decimated what was left of the Cloud Warriors. But their story is fascinating. Eskrik Ring. In 2009, Michael Greenhorn found a unique gold ring near Yorkshire that was adorned with a sapphire. Experts who recently examined the Eskrik ring in York now believe it likely dates to the 5th or 6th century, not the 10th or 11th as originally thought. They also suggest that the ring was made in Europe, possibly France, and that it may have belonged to a king, a leader, or a groom, rather than a bishop as previously thought. The wear on the ring also suggests that it may have initially been a brooch that was later transformed into a ring. The sapphire in the ring was likely cut earlier, possibly during the Roman period, but the ring itself was made specifically around the sapphire. Considering the wear on the ring, it's believed that it was worn for at least 50 years before it was lost. The Great Goddess of Teotihuacan. Among the many mysteries surrounding the ancient Mexican metropolis of Teotihuacan, one is particularly difficult to crack. How did its inhabitants use the many signs and symbols found on its murals and ritual sculptures? The discovery in the 1990s of the enigmatic red glyphs, most of which are arranged in neat columns, has led a growing number of scholars to question the long-held view that writing did not exist in the city, which flourished from about 100 BC to 550 AD. Much is unknown about the civilization that inhabited the ancient city, including what language the indigenous people spoke and whether they developed a writing system similar to that of the Aztecs, who ruled the area some 8 centuries later and revered the ruins. Experts have discussed several theories for the glyphs. They concluded they could represent symbols used to learn to write or names of subjugated tribute-paying cities. There may even be signs used in rituals to cure diseases. In any case, the glyphs are mysterious. Giant dinosaur bones. The thigh bone of a giant dinosaur was found by French paleontologists at a dig site in southwestern France, where the remains of some of the largest animals to ever have lived on land have been excavated since 2010. The 2-meter-long femur at the Anjac-Charente site is believed to have belonged to a sauropod, plant-eating dinosaurs with long necks and tails that were common in the late Jurassic period more than 140 million years ago. "This is a great discovery," said Ron Allard, a paleontologist at the National Historical Museum of Paris. "I was particularly amazed at the state of the preservation of this femur. These are animals that likely weighed 40 to 50 tons. Incredible, isn't it?" Massive Triceratops skull. David Schmidt, a geology professor at Westminster College, had just arrived with a group of students for a fossil dig in the South Dakota Badlands in the summer of 2019 when he received a call from the National Forest Service. A rancher nearby had discovered a strange object sticking out of the ground. They wanted Schmidt to take a look at it. "One of the very first bones we saw in the rock was this long cylindrical bone," Schmidt told St. Louis Public Radio. "The first thing that came out of our mouths was, that kind of looks like the horn of a triceratops." After authorities gave the go-ahead, Schmidt and a small group of students returned this summer and spent nearly every day in June and July excavating the skull. One difficulty was the skull's gigantic size, about a meter long and weighing more than 1,500 kilograms. The skull likely came from a Triceratops prorsus, which lived about 66 million years ago on the territory of what is now North America. Baby shoe from the 14th century. Sometime in the 14th century, a very fashionable toddler lived in Saint-Ursanne, Switzerland. The child had tiny, beautiful shoes, intricately decorated leather boots with buttons and buckles. Archaeologists discovered fragments of this well-preserved and frankly charming artifact during an ongoing excavation of an ancient town in the Swiss canton of Jura, according to a report in the local Switzerland. After spending the last 7 centuries in the groundwater of a large wet depression left by the Doubs River, the baby boot emerged from beneath the cobblestones in the eastern part of Jura's old town. Archaeologists quickly brought the boot to Markita and Sergei Volkan, who are shoe specialists at Lausanne Shoe Museum, according to a statement from Jura Cultural Office. The Volkans identified the boot as a particularly rare find, joining the ranks of only 5 other known shoes of similar design previously excavated in Europe. Mysterious Egyptian artifact. A veterinarian swimming off the coast of Atilt, Israel, discovered a 3,400-year-old Egyptian anchor decorated with images of the goddess Seshat and other hieroglyphics. The anchor, shaped like a trapezoid with rounded corners, has a large hole near the top that can be tied with a rope. The artifact is believed to be from a large ornate relief that came from a temple or royal precinct, as indicated by the mark carved into the stone. Experts believe that the limestone slab was trapped in the sand until a storm brought it closer to the surface. What stands out most on the limestone slab is the image of a woman writing on a table. This is the goddess Seshat, the ancient Egyptian deity of writing. Seshat had temples built specifically for her, but was also seen etched into the walls of other shrines. She is known as the divine scribe, librarian, record keeper, builder, and mistress of the House of Books. Mega predator. A 240 million-year-old fossil has shown that dolphin-like ichthyosaurs could devour animals nearly as large as themselves. It's the first direct evidence of megapredators, a large animal eating an animal its size, in the ancient world. Ichthyosaurs were marine reptiles that lived during the time of the dinosaurs. The fossilized ichthyosaur in this new study was uncovered in a quarry in southwestern China. It's a nearly complete skeleton, about 5 meters long, with the bones of another marine reptile, a thalattosaur, preserved in its stomach. The thalattosaur was about 4 meters long and more lizard-like than the ichthyosaur, with 4 paddling limbs. The bones found in the ichthyosaur stomach correspond to the thalattosaur's midsection, from the front to the rear limbs. The stomach contents of our ichthyosaur were not attacked by a stomach acid, so it must have died fairly soon after eating, says study co-author Dr. Ryosuke Motani, a paleobiologist at the University of California, Davis. A fascinating find. Maya slave ship. Archaeologists in Mexico announced that they have identified a ship that transported Maya peoples into slavery in the 1850s. It's the first time such a ship has been found. The wreck of the Cuban paddle-wheeler was found in 2017, but was not identified until researchers from the National Institute of Anthropology and History reviewed contemporary documents and found evidence that it was the ship La Union. The ship had been used to bring Mayans captured during an uprising known as the War of the Castes from 1847 to 1901 to Cuba to work in sugarcane fields. Slavery was illegal in Mexico at the time, but operators of similar ships have reportedly purchased captured fighters or deceived Mayans made landless by the conflict into signing on as contract laborers, often in Cuba, where they were treated as slaves. The La Union was on a voyage to Havana in September 1861 when its boilers exploded and it sank off the once important port of Sisal in the Yucatan. Institute archaeologist Helena Barber-Meinecke said Sisal residents have passed down the story of the slave ship for generations, and one of them led researchers to the vessel. The mysterious stone spheres of Champ Island. The spherical stones on Champ Island in the Franz Josef Archipelago in Russia form a cosmic landscape that seems out of this world. Perfectly round rocks are scattered all over the island as if they were growing out of the ground. Melting glaciers expose the surface of the island. The size of the rocks varies from a few centimeters to a few meters in diameter. Due to the influence of strong wind, water, and low temperature, many of the stones have lost their round shape and look like cobblestones. The origin and formation of the round stones has not yet been conclusively determined. Geologists visiting the island have their own theories as to how they may have been formed. The greatest discoveries in the world of archaeology have long been a thing of the past and can be attributed to the turn of the 19th century. Or can they? Are there still undiscovered treasures out there, and is the time of the greatest archaeological encounters just beginning? Get ready for some groundbreaking discoveries. Vessel from the 15th century. Workers found an ancient barge 30 years ago when they were deepening a pond in an apple orchard, and their tools hit a wooden structure. The owner of the orchard acted immediately and called in a team of archaeologists. They revealed a flat-bottom barge from 1481, typically used for transporting goods on the Vistula River in the 15th and 16th centuries. The find was a sensation, not only because it was so well preserved, but also because it's one of the largest examples of these vessels, measuring 31 meters long, 7 meters wide, and 1.5 meters deep. The barge was found near Chursk Castle in a pond that was likely part of the Vistula River before it changed its course and flowed further east. In fact, it was this change in the river that caused the Dukes of Mazovia to abandon Chursk Castle and move to Warsaw. Dr. Wojciech Brzezinski of the State Archaeological Museum underlines the importance of the find. The ship was sailing on the Vistula in the time of Christopher Columbus, but it is 9 meters longer than his ships. Mysterious paintings. Rock paintings 10,000 years old depicting UFOs and aliens have been found in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, which may indicate that aliens from other planets have interacted with humans since prehistoric times. The fan-like antenna and 3 legs of a vehicle clearly show a resemblance to a UFO-like object. The former central province of India, now Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, was the site of pre-agrarian human settlement even before the Great Tectonic Plate movement. The paintings were discovered in caves hidden deep in the dense jungle near Charama in the tribal region of Bastar. A group of anthropologists have made a startling discovery of intricate prehistoric cave paintings depicting aliens and UFO-like spacecraft along a similar-looking wormhole formation in the sky. The paintings are in natural colors that have barely faded despite the many years. The oddly carved figures are seen holding weapon-like objects and lack clear facial features. In particular, the nose and mouth are missing. In a few images, they can even be seen wearing spacesuits. The newly discovered depictions date from about 10,000 years ago. Golden Lozenge of Stonehenge. Stonehenge, the prehistoric monument in Wiltshire, England, is famous all over the world, and even today, it is a place with a mysterious charm. The monument is made of huge megalithic stones, some standing, some stacked on top of each other, all many millennia old. A lesser-known discovery uncovered at the iconic site is the spectacular and curious artifact of a golden lozenge found in the tomb of a presumed chief or high priest near the circle. Could its grave goods have astronomical significance? The find is not too new, having been made in 1808 by British archaeologist William Cunnington. What Cunnington found was an extensive collection of artifacts that have been called the crown jewels of the King of Stonehenge. Could it be that a king had been buried near the circle? The find was made at a large Bronze Age burial mound just a half-mile from Stonehenge, now known as Bush Barrow. But the tomb is close enough to the circle and within the large complex to suggest that its positioning cannot be a coincidence. Stone circles in the Bruniquel Cave. The French Bruniquel Cave attracts many researchers because 2 stone circles were found there that were built more than 170,000 years ago. Researchers have no doubts that these mysterious circles were made by people. The main material is parts of stalactites and stalagmites. To make the circles, about 400 parts were used, which were joined with fire. More than 170,000 years ago, Neanderthals lived in the territory of today's France, and no one but them could complete this task. The unusual circles in Bruniquel Cave are quite complex constructions and prove that Neanderthals were more intelligent than modern science assumed. Unfortunately, we still do not know the exact purpose of the stone circles. Lost submarine. The Turkish Navy has found a sunken German submarine from World War II during the production of a documentary film. The U-23 submarine was found at a depth of 40 meters and about 4 kilometers off the coast of Ava in Istanbul's Şile district. The U-23 was part of a series of 6 German submarines designed to attack Soviet ships in the Black Sea. According to the report, researchers discovered the U-20, another submarine from the same fleet, off the coast of northern Turkey in 2008. Nicknamed Hitler's Lost Fleet, the U-boats had been transported 2,000 miles overland from Germany during World War II to attack Soviet ships, then abandoned as the war neared its end. Over 2 years, the Lost Fleet sank dozens of Soviet vessels in 56 engagements, losing 3 of them to enemy action. Ancient Aboriginal Site. Scientists studying an ancient Aboriginal site in Warrnambool in southwestern Victoria disagree over whether charred rocks and weathered shells are 120,000-year-old evidence of Indian life. If the discoveries on the rocky headland called Moyjil prove to be as old as some scientists believe, they would forever change the global understanding of human migration. Researchers from several universities have been studying the site for years, and with the latest research on hold due to the coronavirus pandemic, it could be some time before a definitive conclusion can be made about whether Indigenous Australians inhabited the site more than twice as long ago as previously thought. In any case, famed Lake Mungo geologist Jim Bowler is convinced that the evidence found at Moyjil indicates that people cooked and ate at the site 120,000 years ago. Ancient Greek Tomb. This 3,500-year-old Greek tomb challenges everything we thought we knew about the roots of Western civilization. Archaeologists had been digging for days to break down the cream-colored rock-hard baked clay until what began as a collection of stones just visible in the earth became 4 walls in a neat rectangle. Over the next 6 months, archaeologists discovered not only bronze basins, weapons and armor, but countless more valuable items, including gold and silver cups, hundreds of beads of carnelian, amethyst, amber and gold, more than 50 stone seals carved with goddesses, lions and bulls, and 4 stunning gold rings. It was an ancient tomb, one of the most spectacular archaeological discoveries in Greece in more than half a century, and the researchers were the first to open it since the day it was covered up. Weapons Graveyard. Archaeologists excavating a centuries-old cemetery have found a number of rare tools and ancient Polish weapons, including an amazingly well-preserved sword. In 2019, archaeologists excavated a field near Bejsce in the Świętokrzyskie Voivodeship in southern Poland and discovered a series of ancient warrior graves containing 4 iron swords and 9 spear or javelin points that were 2,000 years old. A press article in Poland at the time described these artifacts as heavily corroded and seemingly shapeless. The newly discovered swords, in their excellent state of preservation, are a valuable archaeological find that offers insight into the design and shaping of ancient Polish weapons during this period. They also discovered several women's graves with hand tools. Among these artifacts were brooches and tools used to make and repair clothing, including a richly decorated spindle with stripes. The find is unique due to its large number of artifacts. New spider discovered in Russia. What do you think people are more afraid of, guns or spiders? According to statistics, people are more afraid of creatures with many legs and many eyes. For those who are afraid of spiders, I have some bad news, so feel free to skip ahead now. Recently, scientists have discovered a completely new species of the so-called wolf spider, the mere sight of which can frighten the manliest of men. But rest assured, if you run into a wolf spider, you might not even notice it, as the largest species grow to a maximum of 3 centimeters. They usually live in grassy areas and damp forests, hiding in piles of fallen leaves and in places covered inside with a thick layer of spiderwebs. Wolf spiders usually feed on small bugs and also like to eat flies and insect larvae. They lead a solitary lifestyle and crawl out of their shelters only at night. They too are afraid of becoming victims of predators. Production of beer 6,000 years ago. Ancient amphorae show that 6,000 years ago, the Chinese experimented with 2 different methods of making beer in their search for the perfect alcoholic brew. The 9 Neolithic amphora shards found, used back then to transport beer, wine, and grain, were studied by researchers at Stanford University. They found remains of prehistoric beer, as well as evidence of 2 methods used by brewers of the time to brew beer. The methods were done separately and may also have been combined to produce different types of alcohol. One method used by the Yangshao people of Dinkan was to use malt made from sprouted millet, grass seed, and rice to make light alcoholic drinks. Another used Q, moldy grass, and grains to make stronger varieties. Gold and precious stones have always held a fascination for many. Haven't you ever dreamt of finding treasure and becoming rich in one fell swoop? Over the centuries, great riches have been discovered all over the world, and they were not always precious metals or jewels. Some recent finds are even very strange, and at first glance do not appear valuable. Unique treasure of 500 coins. Workers removing the rotten floorboards of an old church near the town of Kosice in Poland came across a ceramic jar filled with 500 coins. The treasure had been under the floor for more than 300 years after being hidden there by a priest. It was discovered during the renovation of the church, which included the entire structure. The boards were removed because they had warped due to the weather. The silver coins were in an ancient pottery in a secret chamber under the wooden floor of the Church of Our Rosary Lady. Finds of ancient artifacts or documents from various eras are not uncommon in cathedrals and churches. However, the discovery of these 500 coins is special because the story that led to the placement of the vase in the secret chamber was clarified shortly after its discovery. Scientists searched archives as well as other objects for clues and came to the conclusion that the priest hid the coins when a civil war was raging in the region at the time. Researchers are certain that the silver coins were donated by local residents and dated them to the 1700s. Nazi treasure trove. Nazis captured the royal castle of Nowy Sącz in the town of the same name in Poland in June 1941 and set up barracks and an ammunition depot. A few years later, the Polish military blew up the castle, after which only the outer walls and a defense tower remained standing. 80 years after the occupation by the Germans, Stanislaw Pustulka found a rusty box on the site of the 600-year-old castle. The poor condition of the Nazi treasure chest gave no indication of what lay waiting inside. The box was filled with silver cutlery and tableware, which had Poland and Austria as the country of manufacture. The amount of items left the discoverers excited, as no one expected to find 103 pieces in the rusted old box. Archaeologists are concentrating further excavations in the area of the Nowy Sącz royal castle and are exhibiting their finds in the local museum. Shipwreck. Back in 1802, the British ship Mentor, carrying antiquities from the Acropolis, sank off the island of Kythera. The two master, bound for England, had just left Port of Piraeus and was on its way to Malta. On September 15, 1802, a storm caused the ship to run into the rocks of the port of Avlamonas on Kythera and very quickly sank to a depth of 23 meters. All passengers and crew members were rescued by the Anikitos. Investigations in the area around the shipwreck brought new findings to light. No parts of the stern of the Mentor could be seen, but instead, personal belongings of the crew members were found. According to the Ministry of Culture, these were glass bottles, ropes, buttons, and other small belongings. Ongoing investigations have allowed experts at the Mentor's keel to obtain new information about the ship's place of origin, suggesting that it was launched in America. Previous underwater excavations focused primarily on the hull of the Mentor and obtaining information about cargo, crew, and passengers. Since the 19th century, fragments of an Egyptian marble inscription have been recovered, which are believed to be parts of a statue of the pharaohs. The exhibition of the inscription in the British Museum led to a dispute with Greece, which demands the release of the artifacts. Treasures from Tutankhamun's tomb. Archaeologists from Tübingen, Germany, as part of a German-Egyptian project, had the opportunity to explore minted gold artifacts that surprisingly reveal a connection between the Near East and Egypt during the time of the pharaohs. The artifacts come from the famous 1922 discovery by English archaeologist Howard Carter and were previously stored at the Egyptian Museum, Cairo. All artifacts were photographed and packaged after their discovery. In painstaking work, the researchers succeeded in assembling the individual fragments and restoring 100 gold appliques almost completely. The finds, which are decorations for bows and quivers, were categorized by restorers from the Roman Germanic Central Museum in Mainz and successfully assigned to the canon of finds from the Middle East. Among the images are, for example, goats of the Tree of Life. These images are not found in Egyptian art, but come from the former Mesopotamia and eventually found distribution in the Mediterranean region. These treasures from Tutankhamun's tomb are evidence of the role of ancient Syria in the spread of culture during the Bronze Age. Quartz crystals from the Swiss Alps. Findings of quartz crystals made the Swiss Alps famous all over the world. They were shaped by the development of cracks in the rocks during the late phase of the formation of the Alps, about 15 to 20 million years ago. During this process, the quartz crystallized through mineral-rich solutions in the cracks in the rock. Depending on the type of composition of the rock, the colorless crystals called quartzites or the darker smoky crystals called granites were formed. Special treasures are the almost black morions and the very rare amethysts. The value of quartz crystals is based on size, luster, and the arrangement of the crystals. Brothers find a gold bar. Two brothers, aged about 10, found gold when they were building a hut in the garden of the family home of Vendôme, France. To do so, they needed sheets, and upon asking their father, they were able to take them from the guest room. When the two lifted the sheets, two heavy objects fell out, which they didn't even notice at first, thinking they were knife holders belonging to their grandmother. When the brothers mentioned the find to their father, it became clear that they were gold bars. To confirm the authenticity of the gold, the local auction house was contacted, which removed all doubts about the authenticity. Each gold bar weighs 1 kilogram and could fetch a price of at least 40,000 euros each if auctioned. The brothers handed over their find only after their father promised to build a pool. Ancient coins found in Shanxi. While working on a construction site in Baishui, northwest of China's Shanxi province, a large number of ancient coins were found, most of which experts attribute to the Song dynasty. When the archaeologists reached the site, they were confronted with a sight of 100,000 coins weighing a combined 460 kilograms. Most of the coins date from the Song dynasty and only a few from the older Tang dynasty. Zhao Zhangfeng, director of the Bureau of Cultural Relics, said few people owned such a large number of coins, and initial investigation showed that the management of an old Chinese private bank had the coins buried during the wars. After the discovery became known, police swiftly sealed off the site. Rare 6,000-year-old horn. For more than 30 years, a rare horn hung on the wall in the office of a manager in the construction industry. The horn was unearthed during construction work in the city of Derby in 1980 and given to the manager as a gift. The man thought it was the tusk of a mammoth and hung it on his wall. When he posted the item on eBay, bids of several thousands of pounds were placed within a few minutes. He was also contacted by an American professor who told him that it was the 6,000-year-old horn of an aurochs. This species of animal became extinct in the 17th century. The owner, who is now retired and does not wish to be named, abandoned the auction. Whale vomit. Surachet Chanchu was looking for recyclable waste on the beach of Songkhla in southern Thailand when he found the 37-pound lump of whale vomit that had washed up. He immediately noticed the color similarity to ambergris. Ambergris is formed in the digestive tract of whales and is a coveted ingredient in products used in the perfume industry. Surachet carried the lump to his house and heated it with a lighter. The substance melted and released a pleasant odor, confirming that it was indeed the sought-after ambergris. A pound of ambergris can fetch up to £14,500 if made of the best quality, meaning that this find could therefore be worth up to £536,500. At this time, Surachet is waiting for the government to assess the find. Experts state that the ambergris is formed by a secretion in the bile duct of sperm whales and solidifies after excretion in the ocean. It's possible for ambergris to float in the ocean for up to 100 years, maturing over time. Millionaire overnight. Sanunwi Leitzer can rightly be called a lucky man. The discovery of 2 rare tanzanites made him a millionaire overnight. Leitzer found 2 of the largest tanzanites ever found in the Mererani Hills in Tanzania and sold them to the government. The stones weigh 9.27 and 5.1 kilograms and earned the lucky finder the equivalent of 2.9 million euros. Tanzanite is known for its blue-violet sparkle and is only found in the Manyara region of northern Tanzania. Since the state was losing up to 40% of its revenue due to the smuggling of tanzanite, President Magufuli made the decision to fence off the area, which is rich in mineral resources, and set up trading centers for purchasers. Miners like Sanunwi Leitzer can sell their finds directly to the government, and the state profits from the smuggling that has been stopped. The value of the gems was worth more than the amount Leitzer received, but the country will not resell these for profit. Instead, they will be displayed in the National Museum of Tanzania. The examples in this video show that anyone can discover treasure unexpectedly and in the most unlikely places. Perhaps you've already found something valuable yourself or know someone else who has. Please share your stories with us in the comments below.